Today we are going to talk about applying rational numbers in real-life situations. Here we are given 4 rules for applying to real-life situation word problems. The first rule is identify if the numbers in the problem are positive or negative. The second rule is circle the clue words to identify if it is adding or subtracting. The third rule is to create a math problem. The fourth rule, go ahead and solve it. Here we have our first example. If it is 5 degrees outside and the temperature will drop 17 degrees in the next 6 hours, how cold will it get? So our first rule says to identify the numbers in the problem if they are positive or negative. So I'm going to highlight the numbers 5 and 17. Then I'm going to use my second rule and circle the clue words that go with it to tell me if it is a positive or negative number. Looking at our first number of 5 degrees, there's no negative word with it, so we can assume that it is positive 5 degrees. Now we go over to 17 and we see the word drop. So I'm going to circle drop. Drop means that it's going to go down. So down would be a negative number. Now we can set up our problem. First we can write down our first number, which is 5. And then we said it was negative 17. So 5 minus 17. So from here I like to write my problems vertically. So I put the bigger number on top, 17, and I subtract 5. Now, the 17 right here has the negative sign with it. So we know our answer has to be negative. Now we can continue like we normally would. 7 minus 5 gives us 2. 1 minus 0 gives us 1. Now we have our second example. Evan withdrew $45 from his bank account. He then used his debit card to buy a new video game for $34.89. What was the total amount Evan took out of his account? So our first rule says to identify the numbers in the problem. So I am going to highlight our first number of 45 and our second number of 34.89. So now I'm going to circle some clue words. So Evan withdrew, it tells us that 45 is a negative. And then it said he also used his debit card to buy is another clue word, a new video game. So what does withdrew mean? Withdrew means to take money out of his bank account. And then when you buy something, that is also money coming out of your bank account. So both of those numbers are negative. So since we have negative 45, and then we're subtracting another 34.89, when we have two negatives, we add. So we have negative 45 and 34.89. I like to add zeros for place value. So now we can add the 2. 0 plus 9 gives us 9. 0 plus 8 gives us 8. Bring our decimal straight down. 5 plus 4 gives us 9. 4 plus 3 gives us 7. Now both of these are negative, so our answer has to be negative. So that tells us he took out $79.89. Here's our third example. The local movie theater reported losses of $475 each day for 3 days. What was the loss for the 3 days? So the first rule says to identify the numbers in the problem and if they are positive or negative. So I like to highlight. So we're going to highlight 475. And then we're also going to highlight 3 days. Now we're going to circle the clue words to see if we're adding or subtracting. So 475 has the word losses attached to it, so that means it's going down. Now the rest of the problem says 3 days. So for 3 days they lost $475. So here I'm going to actually multiply because it is $475 loss for 3 days each. So I multiply. 5 times 3 gives us 15. I carry the 1. 3 times 7 gives us 21. Plus 1 gives us 22. 3 times 4 gives us 12. Plus 2 gives us 14. So they lost $1,425. Now, we had the word losses up here. That means that this answer has a negative. Here's our last example. While watching a football game, Billy decided to list yardage gained as positive integers and yardage lost as negative integers. After these plays, Billy recorded 14, -7, and -9. What was the net gain or loss? All that means is how far did he go from his original spot. Now, I like to draw pictures sometimes so I can visualize better. I'm not the best artist, so bear with me. So if we start at the goal line and we go forward 14, make that line a little straighter. We go forward 14, and then we go back 7, and then we go back another 9. How far back are we? To find this out, we need to identify the numbers. So I have 14, -7, and -9. Now I need to set up my math problem. So I have 14, -7. When I do that, I get 7 yards gained. But then I still have a -9. So when I do that, I have to flip it around so the bigger number's on top. So the negative is now on top, so our answer has to be negative. 9 minus 7 gives us 2. So the net gain or net loss in this situation is -2.